Welcome to another edition of Cracking the IR Code. I am Stacie Buck, President and Senior Consultant of RadRx in Stuart, Florida. Today, I am super excited because we're going to do things a little bit different with Cracking the IR Code. I have this super cool software for coding interventional radiology procedures that I wanted to utilize to show you how to code the operative report that we are going to look at today. So, what I want you to pay attention to when I am abstracting the information from the operative report on the left side of the screen, I want you to pay attention to not just what I'm inputting on the right-hand side of the screen to code this procedure with RadCoder. I want you to pay attention to the codes in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, as they will be updating in real time as I enter in the different steps of the procedure. So let me show you how to use this super awesome coding software with the case that we're taking a look at today. So today's case is a mesenteric angiogram and embolization. So first, I'm going to read the clinical history before we jump into entering the case. So we see that this patient is a 78-year-old female, has multiple prior episodes of lower GI bleeding, and we have 1 week of hospitalization with the melena in the stools there. And she's had a need for a transfusion on this admission with a trend downward in her hemoglobin. And then we also see that a nuclear medicine study was completed on yesterday's date, and it suggested a small amount of bleeding at the splenic flexure. So now the patient is referred for mesenteric angiogram, potentially with a provocative study and potentially with intervention. So we have the patient coming for diagnostic angiography with the possibility of an intervention being performed for the GI bleed. So now I'm going to jump into the report like we usually do and look at those key sections that are highlighted in blue, but I'm going to show you how to use this awesome tool that I have up on my screen to help you code this procedure. So the first thing that we see in our procedure report is we see a note for sedation. For this particular product that we're looking at, there is actually a section where you can enter in moderate sedation. So I'm going to enter in 80 minutes of moderate sedation. And the patient's over 5 years of age. It's the same provider with the sedation is doing the procedure. So we don't need to check any of the boxes that are available. So I've dialed in 80 minutes of sedation. And then from there, I'm going to begin entering the steps of the procedure. Okay. So I'm going to look at the report, and it says ultrasound survey of the left inguinal region was completed with images stored and sent to PACS. And so we see that the physician advanced the catheter into the left common femoral artery under ultrasound guidance. So here I'm going to right click on the left common femoral, and I'm going to select access. And then once access populates, you'll see that the program is defaulting to percutaneous, which we do have a percutaneous access. And we can check off ultrasound for ultrasound guided vascular access. But notice that it gives us additional prompts. We have to make the determination that all the required documentation is present. So here we see that we have the permanently recorded image. Here we see the real-time needle access. Right now, we don't see any documentation of vessel patency, so we're not going to check that box. By not checking that box, the software is not going to assign that code. The next key step of this procedure, the physician ends up advancing the catheter into the superior mesenteric artery. So now I'm going to click up here in the top left-hand corner, and I'm going to select this option that says SMA, IMA, and then that's going to pull up a drawing of the superior mesenteric and the inferior mesenteric artery. So the next step of our procedure, the superior mesenteric artery was selected for an arteriogram. So I'm going to right-click on the superior mesenteric and select visceral imaging. Then from there, I'm going to verify that in the report that the physician documented the findings. So I'm just going to quickly go down to the next page, and I see under discussion, yes, we have findings for angiogram of the superior mesenteric. We're also going to have findings for the inferior mesenteric as well. So I want to keep that in my mind when I'm coding my procedure. So I'm going to select findings documented, and then you'll see that the codes are being updated in that bottom right-hand corner of my screen with every step. So then after catheterization and imaging of the superior mesenteric artery, then the physician goes on to catheterize the inferior mesenteric artery. So I'm going to put my mouse pointer in the inferior mesenteric, and do a right click and select visceral imaging. And then we know already from looking at the findings section that the findings were documented. So I'm going to check that box. And so you'll see that the codes are starting to run off the screen down here on the bottom because I have a lengthy code list there. So now after we enter that step of the procedure, now we're going to go to the next page where we see that the catheter was then moved to the left colic artery and then the superior directed marginal branch toward the splenic flexure. And then an angiogram of that marginal branch was actually imaged. So here, catheter moves through that left colic. Then we know that we have a further catheterization that occurred. So this is going to be up in the ascending branches of the left colic that this occurred. So I'm going to right click there. I'm going to select visceral imaging again. Then I'm also going to check the findings documented box as well, because here in the discussion section, we see that we have findings documented for that particular vessel. Then after that imaging occurs, the physician then decides to perform a coil embolization in the same vessel. So now I'm going to right click on the same vessel and select embolization. And then from there, I need to give some information over here into the software. So I'm going to click on this drop down and I'm going to select gastrointestinal. We're doing an embolization for a gastrointestinal, that GI bleed. And so I'm also going to select the correct clinical indication. I'm going to change that from aneurysm to bleeding. So the physician does that. And then the physician does follow-up angiography following embolization. And then I can put in the number of follow-up images that the physician performed for the completion angiography. And then what we see now in the discussion of this case, I want to rewind for just a moment. Ultrasound survey of the left inguinal region demonstrates complete patency of the left common femoral. So now we can go back up to the first box where we had ultrasound and click vessel patency. It is documented. And then that code is going to be assigned to our code list. So I have abstracted all of the information from our case over on the right-hand side, and RadCoder has done an amazing job of assigning all of the moderate sedation codes that we need, also the catheterization codes for the case, as well as the imaging codes. Oh, one step I missed for imaging. This is very important. I'm kind of glad I missed it. When we do the embolization procedure further down, I forgot to check the decision to intervene based on imaging result box, because we saw from this report that it was a possible intervention based on the imaging. So I'm going to check the decision to intervene based on imaging result, and then that ends up assigning all of the imaging codes. So there are always going to be some additional options that you may need to enter into RadCoder to get the correct information. So now we have all of our final codes. Now that I checked the decision to intervene box, it went ahead and assigned those additional imaging codes. So again, we have our sedation codes. We have our catheterization code 36245 for the superior mesenteric family. Then we have 36247, which was assigned for the inferior mesenteric family for that catheterization. We have our 37244 for the GI bleed. We have our 76937 for the ultrasound guidance. And then for the imaging that we dialed in, we had the imaging of the SMA, we had the imaging of the IMA, and then we had imaging of the branch. So we have a 75726, 75726, and 75774. And if you look at the code list for RadCoder, it's going to match my code list on my answer key, which is what we definitely want to get. So hopefully you've enjoyed this way of looking at the case and abstracting the steps of the procedure into the software. This is a new product that is available now, and it is available for a 14-day free trial. So you can go over to radcoder.com and you can sign up for a 14-day trial, and you can give it a spin yourself, and you can have all kinds of fun coding different interventional radiology procedures with this super cool software.